What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Well, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Mumbai Gutapi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and Fort Lauderdale?
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, Macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat? You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I am your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching us on Iconic, Rockfin, Library, or YouTube, or you're listening wherever podcasts are served, we certainly do appreciate your time and support. We couldn't do the show without our sponsors, our amazing sponsors, C60 Purple Power and Ken Schwartz. It's a small business. It's local to me right here in Colorado. They are making what Cliff High has described as the best batch of C60. So what is C60? Well, it was an element that was theorized in the 60s and 70s by Buckminster Fuller. It was later discovered in the late 80s by a group of scientists that won the Nobel Prize for their discovery. It is a naturally occurring molecule comprised of 60 carbon atoms that forms like a hollow soccer ball. And it is described as a free radical sponge. What that does is it has the ability to neutralize free radicals, reset itself, and do that again and again and again. That's part of the reason it is the most powerful antioxidant known. It's several hundred times more powerful than anything else there on the market. This product has not been approved by the Fraud and Death Administration, but I doubt any of my listeners will give a damn about that. Go to c60purplepower.com, use the promo code MACRO. I've been very vocal about the response the effects that this product has had on my cat. She is doing great. I've been giving it to her for a couple of months now. The turnaround is amazing. I feel great too, but I'm lucky that I feel pretty good just normally. So do yourself a favor and just at least go to the website, c60purplepower.com. Take a look, see if it's right for you. If you like it, use the promo code MACRO, save yourself some money. Well, I've also been talking about the book, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. That was a collaboration between myself and Jeff Berwick. And a lot of you have been saying, hey, man, when's the audiobook coming out? Because, I can't be bothered with all this fancy book learning. I got to hear this stuff on audio. So we have brought in the voice of the audiobook, not Governor, Mr. Patrick Smith. Hey, Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm sorry for cracking up in your intro there. Your ad read there was hilarious. Fraud and Death Administration is about the best name I've ever heard for it. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. And it's not just people that order food at McDonald's on the picture menu that want the audiobook. I realize there's a lot of people that are very busy and they want to hear this in a format that they're comfortable with. And Jeff says to me, hey, we got to do the audiobook. He said, do you know anything about audiobooks? And I said, I know very little. In fact, I think I have only listened to 2 audiobooks in my life. So he said, I think Patrick Smith might be the guy for it. And then I thought, oh, well, let's see. And you and I got to know each other. And I said, oh man, not only is he the perfect guy for this, but you've got the voice that's going to make this book, sound so damn important. And I love that. So tell us about the process. What is the process of recording an audiobook? It sounds so.
Well, first of all, I'm honored. I'm honored to have the opportunity to work on this project. Every time you take an audiobook project, unless you've read the book beforehand, which you almost never really have time to do because it's such a time investment, that to do these more than just as a hobby, you really have to just trust the author is not going to make you say something that you do not want out there in the world in your voice. And and just speaking to the process, it is a marathon unlike anything you would expect going in. I've been in video production my entire life. My father raised me in a video studio doing broadcast TV. And so I thought, oh, I got this. I do YouTube. I've been doing YouTube for years. I've been doing video for years. This is just talking into a mic. I don't even need a camera. This can't be hard, can it? Right. Oh my God. Is it more than you'd think it is? Because the first thing most people don't notice is that most audiobooks you listen to, and now that I say this, you'll never not hear it, is that there is no breath sounds. Or if there is breath sounds, they're very muted or almost completely removed. What does that mean? Well, it means you have to have a really high quality setup that can actively on the fly filter out your breath because you have to breathe to record an audiobook, or you have to edit it after the fact and literally punch out every single time the mic hears you breathe. And when I started doing it, it was untenable. I think I worked one of the first big audiobooks I did was on unschooling, and then the next one I did was Larkin Rose's The Most Dangerous Superstition.
Oh, great book.
And yeah, I'm sure if you guys have not read Larkin Rose's The Most Dangerous Superstition, I would definitely recommend get the audiobook, by the way.
Yeah, plug away.
But it was insane. It took me almost 2 years, and that sounds absurd. And of course, I didn't actually work on it every day for 2 years, but just I re-recorded hours and hours 2 and 3 times to get it right, to get the performance right. It is a totally different skill from podcasting, from any other video production I had ever done. So I mean, I can go into the process as detailed as you like, but yeah.
And how long did this book? How long is it? It turn out total?
17 hours, I think, around there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, people are going to feel,
and
they're going to feel like they know you when they get done with the book. You know what I mean? They'd be, oh, I know Patrick. He's been talking to me about this stuff for a while. I've been for 17 hours. I've been listening to him talk about this stuff. Normally, that's reserved for people on crystal meth, but in this particular case, you get a 17-hour diatribe from you. It ends. You wrap it up nicely with a little conclusion at the end. I think people are going to be interested to hear this.
Yeah, it happened. Like, people will meet me in real life, and this is the weirdest thing. This is totally unnatural for a human to deal with, and you've probably experienced this with the following that you have. When somebody has only known you through the work that you've done, they're used to seeing your face or hearing your voice talk about things. And it's natural for a human to develop a connection, even though you don't even know they exist. They develop a connection with you in their mind. And so when they meet you, I've had people just kind of like, I'll just look over and they'll just be like staring at me, just like, they're like, yeah, man, I've heard your voice for years, but now here you are, like right in front of me talking to me, and it's just weird. And I'm like, this is really awkward. Stop, Well,
what was the response for doing Larkin's book? Because that book is legendary. I mean, people know it, but the audiobook, I would imagine that you got quite a bit of feedback from that one.
The feedback has all been really, really good, even though it was one of the first audiobooks I did. And, it was certainly, it probably shows in the work, but I have impossibly high standards, which is part of the reason why it took me so long. But the feedback was excellent. I've supported Larkin for years now. We've helped him out doing live Candles in the Dark stuff. We helped him turn it into a production. I don't know if your viewers are familiar with Candles in the Dark. We can maybe explain that if they're not.
Let's explain it, because at Anarchopulco the last couple of years, you see this workshop offered, Candles in the Dark, with Larkin Rose and his wife Amanda, and it is sort of a la carte add-on feature to your Anarchopulco experience. You stay a couple extra days and go through it. It's like boot camp. Define it for people if they're interested.
It's a 2 or 3 day seminar where he literally just walks you through how to talk to people that are still stuck in the statist mindset, where they have a lot of unquestioned assumptions about the validity of the authority of government. And, most people think, oh, I know how to talk to people about that because I used to be one. In fact, some people will be like, 6 months ago, I was in that mindset. Why can't I talk to them? You don't know. It is not as easy as you think it was, as you think it is. And I'm sure if you've tried to talk to especially strangers about this stuff, sometimes it's difficult. It's easy to devolve into arguments, especially if you haven't really studied like the Socratic method of how to actually kind of using questions walk people into very deep concepts and try and get them to think about new ideas without hitting their mental walls that everybody has. We all have them, right? And so it's a 2.5 day seminar. And just to pimp his stuff, attendcandles.com is his address for that. You can actually take the whole thing online. So,
great.
Would definitely recommend.
Well, I think a lot of us that are awake to this sort of these topics have faced the issues of trying to explain it or convey the message to friends and family, people that are close to you. I know that I've been very vocal about my disastrous Thanksgiving dinner where I brought up 9/11 and watched the whole table turn on me, and I didn't have my argument down, and I didn't. And this was many years ago, and I realized that you have to be. There is a skill to it. There's an art form to getting people to put their guard down for a second and listen to some information that may conflict with their worldview. And if you do it the wrong way, you'll know right away. If you do it the right way, man, it's very powerful. You can open people's minds in a way that I've discovered that if I'm doing, that a monologue directed at somebody, just a verbal fire hose of information, is the wrong way to do this. That if I can make it more of a dialogue where I get people, I ask them questions or something, I can get them sort of to come with me on this. Hey, help me understand this. Help me, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on this? It seems a little fishy to me, but I'd love to get your take on it. That approach works way better than, hey, sit down. I'm going to tell you something. Let me tell you how this all works. And people just go, no, I'm not interested. No, thank you. It's like it's the knock at the door, like somebody trying to sell you something. And so I think that, Larkin Rose has been doing this for a long, long time. He is an OG in the truth movement, the anarchy community, well respected, really well liked, a decent guy. And to be able to understand, to sharpen that tool that you've got of communicating with people, boy, that's got to be a valuable thing that you can take, not just for explaining conspiracies or whatever, but in your entire life. That to have that communication skill will help you in just about anything you do.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my neighbor like a week ago, and it came, and I used the tools. One of the things I learned was that people already know everything they need to know to understand the problem with government. They do. They've just never taken it to its logical conclusion in their own mind before. And so my neighbor, who I think this might have been the first time I talked to this guy, he just walked by and we were hanging out in the driveway, and he saw my taxation is theft shirt that I was wearing. And he's like, what taxation is theft? What do you mean? I mean, it sounds good, but what do you mean by that? Like, how would we have roads?
Right. The old question
every single time. Yep. And I was like, oh yeah, the government, does a good job on the roads, don't they? And I just kind of raised an eyebrow and looked at him, and he was like, oh yeah, okay, it all makes sense now. Yeah. They already know the government does whatever they do terribly, And anybody, I mean, and it's like, okay, is it really hard to build a road? We don't need to go through the roads argument, but the point is like Larkin teaches how to stop making it confrontational, stop making it, you're not educating anybody. You're just asking questions and sort of, bringing out what they already realize about how the world works. It's great. I would recommend.
Well, speaking of that, when I was talking to Jeff, started writing the book with Jeff in the summer of 2018. Then in February of 2019, went to Anarchopulco for the first time. And for those that don't know, it's the Anarchopulco, happens in Acapulco, Mexico. It's the largest anarchist convention in the world, hosted by Jeff Berwick, my co-author. And he has put together this really great 4-day package, 4-day event. It's actually 6 days if you add on the Dollar Vigilante. And if you tack on Candles in the Dark at the end, you're there for like a week, a little more than a week. So I went to this without fully understanding or having an idea of what I was going to expect. And I think that a lot of people that are sort of new to the concept of anarchy have this impression in their minds of what it is or what it isn't. And it always seems to revolve around, maybe Molotov cocktails or burning tires or Antifa type people. And I try to describe the scene that I saw at Anarchopulco in year one, or the first year I went, 2019, on the Friday night, and it goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But the Friday night, the big night, a bunch of buses pull up at the lobby of the Princess Munda Hotel, and I'm sitting there waiting because I'm about to go into an ayahuasca session, but I'm there with some people, and I go, "What are those buses for?" And they said, "Oh, that's the buses that are taking all the people to the nature preserve to let the baby sea turtles out at night on the beach so that they don't get eaten by the birds." And I'm thinking, yeah, that's some anarchy, right? I envision. So to talk to people about what anarchy is, what it isn't, how you define it, and why it's not as scary of a concept as people maybe believe.
Oh man, we've got, an 80-year history plus of people sending the precisely opposite definition of anarchy out into the world. We have a large group of people. You mentioned Antifa. For years and years and years, they've been teaching the world that anarchy means rioting in the streets, smashed windows, Molotov cocktails, innocent people getting their property and businesses destroyed. And the word anarchy is so simple. It means no rulers. It means an absence of rulers. What is a ruler? A ruler is somebody that forcibly coerces you. They control you and your property. That's what a ruler is. So the absence of that is peace and voluntary cooperation and consent. Now, just take that very simple concept and then look at what we've seen Antifa doing over the past several years. When somebody's smashing your business's window and destroying your property, how is that not them making themselves your ruler in that moment?
Yeah.
They are saying that they have the right to destroy what is yours and even endanger your personal safety, the most important piece of property that you have. They are making themselves your ruler in that moment. It is anything but anarchy. It is the opposite. They are little micro tyrants wearing black masks. They are an embarrassment, and that has nothing to do with what. But philosophy is a technology, like everything else, and we have iterated on it since the time of Antifa's invention, and we've understood, hey, that's not actually no rulers. That's just being, titty babies in the streets that are upset about people that have more than you. Yep. Let's say that's an oversimplification, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when we've iterated on it and we've taken the good parts of the word capitalism, that would be voluntary exchange, the ability to have a sovereign right to your property. Remember, this is the first and most important piece of property is your body. Extending that out into your bank account and your business and your car and your home and the other property that you own. So when you take the idea of no rulers and you apply it to the entire life, you get what what I like to call voluntarism or anarcho-capitalism, which is like anarchy plus capitalism, but it's kind of saying the same thing. It's just to sort of differentiate from all the commies that have used the word improperly for years and for longer than we've been alive. But it's so simple, and they've messed it up for so long that, anyway, so hopefully that was a good explanation. It is voluntary interaction and consent held inviolate in everything.
And you're the host of the Anarchast, started by Jeff Berwick. When Jeff had me on, he says, I like to always start off with the question, how did you become an anarchist? And my response to him was, once I got clear on the terms, what it meant, that anarchy doesn't mean no rules. It means no rulers. And what a gigantic difference that is. You know, one letter changes everything. And the idea that people are comfortable with rulers is maybe the most toxic component of this, because I guess we have rulers in our own home, right? As a kid, you have your parents that rule over you, but it's not done hopefully it's not done in a psychopathic way, the way the government uses it. But to have no rulers is incredibly freeing and liberating, because then you become in charge of yourself. And that may or may not be a good thing, depending on how responsible you are. But if you feel that you're an intelligent person, that you're a thoughtful person, that you're a reasonable person, and that you aren't behaving in a decent way only because there's rules that say you have to, that you are behaving in a decent way because you are a decent human being. All these rulers out there, they don't apply to you anymore. They seem to become less important, as long as it's this belief system that we have to have rules, or if we don't have rules, then everyone will just start raping and murdering everybody. And that is such a bullshit assumption. I mean, we are. I mean, obviously, there are some people out there that are uncontrollable and they're going to do horrible things. We know that. We acknowledge that. But the bulk of humanity, when left to their own devices, are decent human beings, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of government as a technology in and of itself, it is currently in vast demand. And why is it in demand? Because without it, most people fear that they will not be safe from other people. And it's for protecting against all the other bad people. Nobody wants government for themselves. Nobody demands government exist to control them. They're not worried about themselves being good. They're worried about the other people, the bad people. There's a demand for government because people think other people need to be controlled, when in reality, most people don't. And for the people that do, there are way better solutions than a central monopolized, the least efficient form of protection technology ever invented, which is the police and the justice system that we're subjected to now. It isn't even like you could just have a fever dream and come up with a better system than the one we're subjected to right now.
Especially in the context of America, where we have the prison system, the private prison system, the large incarceration, the incentivization of keeping people locked up in cages is disgusting and repulsive, and a stain on our humanity that we would even participate in something like that. But the anarchist community that what I've come to understand is that if people wanted to boil down, well, what is their big beef? What do they have a problem with? I think that it could be, and there's plenty of things, but one of the major components that they have a problem with is centralization of power and authority and things like that. And they seem to want to decentralize everything, decentralize the currency through cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and things like that, decentralize, get away from the state, get away from state-run schools, get away from state-backed, the military and things like that. What does a decentralized world look like to you?
I hope your podcast is like 3 hours long because there's so many things I want to talk to you about.
We can go as long as we need to go to unpack these concepts for sure.
I'm looking forward to it. So how precise do you want me to be? First of all, I would never think to speak for anarchists. That would be an totally opposite thing to do.
I understand. And you're not the representative of anarchists necessarily, but you're somebody that has
by definition. Like,
right.
There is no, go ahead.
Exactly. There is no leadership role necessarily, but you understand at least the thought process and the concepts and the things behind it. And a decentralized world might sound scary to people that are everything's scary if you're comfortable with centralization and you move to a totally different system. Of course, it would be scary early on. But why should people not be scared of the concept or the idea of decentralizing?
These are good questions. And I'm a technologist. My career, as it were, is a chief technology officer for startups. I'm an entrepreneur. I start companies. I invent technology and hopefully sell the company and start another one. That's what I do. So I'm very aware of the technology and the way it functions behind the scenes. And I don't have all good things to say about decentralization. So this might be an interesting conversation.
Okay, good. That's fine. If we can work out the bugs, if there aren't good things, if there are some problems with it, let's talk about those too.
So almost any centralized technology is faster, more reliable, more efficient than all of the decentralized technology. And you can look at that in terms of Bitcoin as a currency. Its transaction throughput is tiny in comparison to Visa or MasterCard's network that they've built, right? Where they can throughput millions of transactions a second because they have a centralized database platform. So there are some real drawbacks to decentralization that I think a lot of people gloss over and that we shouldn't quite be so confident will be the end all be all of future technology. I think decentralization's utility comes very specifically from one main thing, maybe two main things. One, not trusting any centralized source, but I would put that secondary. The main market differentiator, the main power of decentralization is that it is the only answer to government centralized coercive power. And what I mean by that is like if we want to conduct business privately, we can build a decentralized solution to allow us to exchange money in the example of Bitcoin, for example. But assume the government doesn't exist. Why would we want to use this slow, inefficient database technology called the Bitcoin blockchain to exchange money when we could use, one of the competing Visa versions that, absent government coercion and government attempts to control how we spend our money? Why would we? It would seem the centralized solutions might have room to bloom again because they would be built on trust and competition with people that would love nothing more than to put them out of business if they betrayed that trust someday. So it seems like only in market scenarios where there's a gun in the room, like with government, does decentralization form the best solution, because it's the only way. If you centralize at all against the government, those guns get directed at your forehead immediately. So if you decentralize, they don't know where to point the guns anymore, or there's too many targets to point the guns at because the government's gun resources are more limited than they want you to believe. Those are my initial thoughts, I guess, on decentralization.
Yeah. We hear a lot about it. I guess it makes sense that if as a centralized force, you have massive corruption and a monopoly on violence in the government, then something decentralized would be the answer to that. But like you said, in the absence of the government, then if we were dealing with a smaller group of people that could all be trusted, we would want to centralize things and improve the efficiency of that. But Bitcoin seems to, it's funny because over the last couple of years, you could monitor the vibe of Anarchopulco based on the price of Bitcoin, like when it was up, the mood was pretty good. When it was down in the 4,000s, after being up at 17 for a while, then the mood was sort of a little bit more reserved, but there was still, I think the hardcore people still stayed, steadfast. They said, well, no, nothing's changed on our end. The price goes up, price goes down, concept still there. What is your take? What do you think about Bitcoin moving forward into the future?
I'm an outlier. A lot of anarchists are very bullish on it. As a technologist, I've always been skeptical, not because the technology isn't revolutionary, world-changing, mind-blowing, awesome, and amazing, but because of the way it's currently being developed in a communalistic way, in a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's every decision is made by committee of a bunch of, sometimes anonymous people. If they want to iterate, when I'm running one of my companies, to survive, I have to iterate on my technology as fast as possible to solve as many market problems as I can as quickly as possible. The nature of Bitcoin development is extremely glacially slow. It is almost still version 1 of itself. And there have been so many other innovations in all the other cryptocurrencies that to me, it's like a matter of time until enough people realize that Bitcoin doesn't have really good privacy. It doesn't have fungibility. It's very trackable, by the government, for example. Its fees are incredibly expensive. And all of these problems have been solved in other cryptocurrencies. But Bitcoin has the name and they have the money right now and the market cap right now. So I'm cautious, I guess, would be how I feel about it.
Do you have preferences on other cryptos then? I know Jeff is bullish on Monero for privacy reasons. Is there anything that stands out, any of the certain coins out there that you like more so than others?
I'm not here to shill. I hate it when people shill their coins, but I like Monero because it has privacy. Yeah. And without privacy, I might as well use PayPal. I mean, with the exception of like the inability to lock my account, which can certainly happen to PayPal and is definitely an advantage of Bitcoin. But aside from that advantage, I might as well use PayPal because Bitcoin is mostly trackable unless I go to crazy lengths to make my transactions private. If they can watch what I can do, and even if they can't lock my wallet, let's say, if they know I have it because they can see my wallet, for example, they can come and show up at my house and throw me in a cage until I let them lock my wallet. You know what I mean? Like, privacy is so foundational to the technology really being revolutionary that I've always been looking for that as a solution first. Yeah. That's my primary thing.
Yeah. I know Jeff loves Bitcoin or loves Monero, and it's not showing. It's just an opinion. I'm just curious what people like. And I sat through, a couple of the presentations at Anarchopulco to try and get an understanding. I'm admittedly late to the crypto game. I mean, I was listening to it and I was understanding a little bit and believing it. It wasn't that I thought, oh, this is garbage. I just didn't have the bank account to like say, I'm just going to go all in on Bitcoin at $700 or whatever. And frankly, I wanted to see a little bit more of a mass adoption before I felt comfortable with that thing being taken on to the new levels. But at these, at Anarchopulco, as you go to, hear one speaker versus another, and you kind of make the rounds, I got introduced to David Rodriguez and his unschooling component of this. And I watched his presentation and afterwards went up and talked to him for a little bit and said, man, this is great. I've had him on the show to explain this. We go through 2020 with the COVID situation, school shutting down, virtual learning, all of this stuff. And we see a spike in homeschooling. What do you think about the concepts that David is talking about with the Gatto Institute and things like that? The idea of viewing, I don't call it public schools anymore. I call it state schools because I want it to sound more repulsive than just the traditional public schools. So I want people to hear, ooh, I never thought of it as a state school before. But are we on to something here with a reimagination of the education system?
Man, I hope so. I hope people wake up to this. I see unschooling or even just homeschooling as a step two to what I teach. I run a university I call Peaceful Parenting University, and I talk about principled parenting. And so I begin with the parents when their kids are way younger than school age, and I try and teach them the principles of freedom and self-ownership, and how to weave it into their actual home, how to turn their home into a principled free market, that then sets the stage for later when it's time to, start thinking about schooling and unschooling, homeschooling, things like that. And we can talk about that, or we can focus on homeschooling. It's totally up to you how we do it.
Let's do both, actually, because I was unaware of your
I do a lot of
parents.
I do a million things. We do, yeah. I hope we have 3 hours. No,
let's go, man.
So Peaceful Parenting University, and it goes to what you were talking about. Some of the problems with public schools is that they were expressly designed. And one of the cool things is, like, this is in your book, and I know it's in your book because I read it. It's in my voice.
Right.
But you talk about how the public schools were created specifically according to the Prussian model to train good factory workers, to make people used to responding to the ringing of the bell, just like they did in factories. Walk in line, ask permission to go to the bathroom, ask permission to take a break, hope that you don't get your recess canceled because some asshole in the class was misbehaving, like this kind of thing is, and here's the key. And this is why parenting is the most powerful form of activism in the world. It's because when you are born, when you enter reality, you accept the reality you're presented with. We all do. You have to. That is basic survival. We accept the reality with which we're presented when we enter the universe. And if that reality is authoritarian parenting, if that reality is authoritarian schooling with routines and, jumping on command to the sound of a ringing bell and walking in line and getting permission slips for every little thing we want to do. If that is the reality most people are presented with, that is the reality most people will accept. And if they grow up since birth in that reality, then when they become adults and hit 18, their world will not seem right unless they still have those structures in place. They will feel terrified internally, subconsciously, that there isn't an all-seeing authority giving them permission to do every little thing, like build a fence or mow if they, they have to mow their lawn, or they have to get a driver's license to drive around, or they have to, make sure they never have the wrong vegetation in their pocket, because what if data government doesn't like it? If that isn't there, then the world is wrong to them. It doesn't make sense. It's not the reality that they knew since they entered life. And so starting with that in mind as a parent, starting even with a baby, you can create the world as you want it to be in your home, so that the reality that they're introduced to and that they accept by default is the voluntary one, the non-coercive one, the one where there isn't an all-controlling authority over them, so that when they hit adulthood and somebody subjects that to them, they will instantly and innately feel that is wrong. There's something. Who are you to tell me what I have to have a stupid driver's license to drive my car? This is my car. That's not your road. Leave me alone. Who are you? Go away. Gross. Like that should be the normal reaction of somebody that wasn't raised with not only parenting, but also with schooling, to sort of record that into people's being.
Yeah.
So that's why parenting is so important to me.
Yeah. And then you transition from that into the schools. So you've got the authoritarian parents at home telling you what you have to do. Then you've got obviously the big brother government sitting over everything. But then you get into schools and you have the authoritarian teacher telling you what to do. And it sets you up for a lifetime of. And I went through this too. I didn't go through public schools. I went through private schools, fortunately, but it still, I remember my first day at college feeling like I had missed a meeting where I felt like everybody else was told where to go and what to do. And I had spent my entire life being told, this is where, at this time you go there and do this. And then when I got to college, even though I'd been at boarding school for high school, so I was kind of on my own anyway, but when I got there, I felt like, I was like, well, I felt like I missed the big meeting that everybody else went to, the big meeting where they explained like, this is how it all runs. And what I realized was, no, there was none of that. It was you figure it out. And it did seem foreign to me. It took me a whole year to sort of get my act together and sort of manage myself and sort of become a little bit more self-reliant, because I wasn't having somebody sitting around telling me what to do. So sometimes the things that we think are helpful as parents, I'm a parent to a 9-year-old, might actually be setting people up for, setting their kids down the wrong path. Talk about some of the things that you do with the peaceful parenting. I mean, is this something that people can sign up for and get involved with online? Or is it an in-person sort of class? How does it all work?
So it's a series of courses, and I'm pretty sure we're about to flip it from kind of like a paywall thing, a series of videos. I think we're just going to maybe open it up in exchange for, donations or something like that, because it's
value
just
for value.
I'm just not happy with charging people for something. I'm trying to improve the world, and if I lock it behind a paywall, my audience goes to much smaller than I want it to be. But anyway, so
it's the dilemma. It's the dilemma we're all faced with. It's like we want to get the information out there, but like we also have bills to pay too. So it's like this sort of fine line. It'd be nice if we were all just independently wealthy and then we could put the information out for free. But until that day, we're sort of forced to do that. So people can get involved in that with you. Take these courses. Is it online course? Or is it
It's online video lessons. Yeah, it's peacefulparentinguniversity.com, and it's called Peaceful Parenting University, but Peaceful Parenting has sort of a hippie granola rap out there. It's got a reputation, much like the word anarchy has a reputation that isn't quite what I'm intending or how I live my life. It's more like principled parenting. It's not permissive parenting. It's using the principles of non-aggression, of voluntary interaction, of self-ownership and consent, just brought down into your home. And what I mean by that is, some of the basics would be like the recognition that you own yourself. I own myself. My son owns himself. My daughter owns herself. And that is as sovereign and as inviolable for them as it is for me. And I have to respect them and their self-ownership and their existence in the world to the exact same degree I expect anybody else to respect mine. And, that raises a million questions in most parents' minds, just saying that. Well, how do you raise a kid if you can't order him to do things? There are ways. There are many ways, and it works. My kids were 4 years old. I have 3 kids. My 2 youngest were 4 or 5 years old before they ever saw another human yell at another human, much less be ordered what to do, much less be, hit or controlled or timeout or anything like that. And my kids are some of the best behaved kids you'll ever see. It's not like they're just hellions running rampant or anything like that. It's because there are, from the beginning, there are so many things to talk about. Property ownership. There is no communal property in my home. A lot of people think that communism only works at the level of the family. I'm here to tell you it causes a lot more problems than it solves, even at that level too. Every single thing in my home is privately owned by somebody, myself, my wife, or my kids. And those property rights are inviolate. So if my kid owns something, I can't ground him from it. I can't take it away, obviously, unless he's hurting somebody with it or doing something like that. And people are like, well, how do you teach your kids to share? Well, guess what? You only don't want to share something if you're not secure in your property right or your ownership of it. So like if I am 100% sure that at any time I want, I can take my property back or reclaim it or demand that you return it, then why wouldn't I want to share when I'm not using it? If I'm not worried you're going to share it and then keep it until I want it back and I can't get it back because you're using it, because most families do it like that. Oh, he's using it right now, so you have to wait until he's done before you get it. That doesn't work. That's not how it works in real life. That would cause so many property disputes in the rest of your life that it would just be untenable. It would be a nightmare. So why do we teach our kids that that's how it should be done when they're little kids? No. Like if that toy is yours, son, and you want to let her use it, you can, or you can say no. You don't have to let your sister use it. And if you do, and she's using it and you want it back, you ask for it back. She has to return it. It's yours. And what that does is it makes him feel secure. in that item. So he doesn't care. He shares all the time because he can get it back whenever he wants. Just like in the rest of our lives when we're adults. I'll loan something to my friend because I have an absolute understanding that I can ask for it back whenever I want. Yeah. Stuff like that. There's so many. I mean, I do talk for hours in the university about it, but yeah,
well,
so
it's
many
fascinating because it's a concept that now that I think about it, it is confusing because you teach kids one thing at home and then they go out in the real world and those same concepts don't apply, and maybe it creates friction. And of course, I wonder why people are so screwed up. Because there's so much contradiction. And after going through 2020, I mean, it seems like contradictions was on Front Street. Everything was intentionally contradictory. It was making people insane and crazy. And now we have we have the talk about a vaccine freedom passport. I mean, God, if Orwell himself didn't come up with the name, it's so preposterous. I'm terrified to ask you how you even feel about this because I know it's going to be bad. But talk to us about the concept of a vaccine passport.
It is the most absurd. Look, and I want full disclosure here. I have historically not been much of what most people in the freedom space would consider a conspiracy theorist. And I know that's a pejorative term, and I don't mean it like that, but I'm just describing what I'm talking about. Yeah. I am I like to really try and be rational. I like to have high standards of evidence for what I believe. One of my mottos is I want to believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. And I really put thought into what I believe. And I don't just believe something because I want it to be true or because I'm afraid it is true. And so I came into this with a lot of reading about vaccines and I'm not an expert and I don't claim to be, and I don't give medical advice on purpose. But, I came in mostly trusting that, and I think most people, yourself included, would probably agree with the following statement. Most vaccines are mostly safe and somewhat effective. I think that's a middle of the road statement. Yeah. Obviously, there's not bodies in the streets, blood running in the streets, after vaccinations. They definitely have injuries. There's definitely people that are harmed by them. That is unquestionable. But I'm just telling you kind of where I came into it as. Mm-hmm. But here comes March of last year, and you can go back and look at a video on my other channel. I have Anarchast, and I also have Disenthrall. Disenthrall is a more philosophy-oriented, just me talking kind of channel. Mm-hmm. And so back in March, I called it. I freaking nailed it. I'm like, look, the world's about to go nuts in lockdown, and they're going to rush a vaccine to market. And the only way they're going to try and force that through is by starting to control where you can go and what you can do if you haven't been vaccinated. And I predicted something like sporting events and stuff like that. And I have never been more right about a prediction. And your book predicted it too. And your book called that too. You guys did a great job. And it's almost like, you feel like Nostradamus sometimes when you make these predictions and then a year later they come true. But I was thinking about that, and it's not that. It's that once you see the gears spinning behind the scenes and you know how everything fits together and works, it's not even predicting the future. It's just saying, oh, that's how that works. And so when that turns like that, that's what it's going to do. Mm-hmm. You're just describing what the machine is going to do. And that's what I did, and that's how it's working. And now for some reason, some people are surprised by, our ability to predict what these tyrants will do,
Yeah, if you know how the machine is built, then you know what happens when you turn it on. And it's easy to work backwards from this if you know that they want to destroy, freedom and liberty and things like that. And you go, well, how would they do that in the context of a virus? Well, they could institute vaccines and passports and make sure, papers, please. And everyone goes, get out of here, you conspiracy theorists. That would never happen. That's what the Nazis did. And we would never. Oh, I'll tell you what, if 2020 taught us anything, is that, we got a real good taste of the incremental movement taking a normal human being and turning them into a Nazi. I know we've had these conversations, and everybody's a Nazi these days, right? That's just the most overused term. But you go back and when you're studying World War II in school, people go, how did they get so many of these citizens to just fall in line? These people, if I were alive back then, I would have never joined the Nazi party. I would have never tolerated that and everything. And they might believe that. But after 2020, we saw how that works. We saw how authoritarians put things in place.
So bad.
And people find themselves. I think it's a fascinating study. I mean, if 2020 was anything, it was a master class in psychological manipulation. But to how you get people to incrementally go from I would never be a part, I'd never do what the Nazis did, to on Thanksgiving calling the police because there's too many cars in your neighbor's driveway. I mean, if you're doing that, you would have been Zeke Heiling your ass off in 39. You know what I mean?
100%. And just to kind of like refer back to your Orwell, I just tweeted this recently. The Weather Channel tweeted the following words, and it blew my mind. The Weather Channel. Your COVID-19 vaccine card could be your ticket to freedom.
Orwell weeped.
It's just the idea that anyone would think that you could have a ticket to freedom. That's not how freedom works. People have no idea. They've had it trained out of them. They don't even know what freedom is anymore. If you think you have to have a ticket to have freedom, you don't know how it works. And that's one of the things we do with the street activism, where I do so much, man, and we can talk about whatever you want. But
let's talk about street activism.
It's illegal to feed the homeless in the state of Texas. Most people don't know that. And so one of the things that we do, there's an amazing, probably in my opinion, the most effective group of activists in the world is here in Texas called Don't Comply. We go out armed to the teeth to feed the homeless in South Dallas, Texas. And we do it not because we're scared of the homeless people. We do it to make the police let us feed the homeless people. That is what the Second Amendment is for, is what is the message that we give to the statists. It's for resisting tyrants when they when they overstep and when they become tyrants.
Right.
And the lesson here that I'm connecting back to the Weather Channel is that you obtain freedom not by asking, not by obtaining licenses for it, not by begging a political system or voting for some politician, disgusting whatever. You obtain freedom by taking it. You take freedom. You do it. If you want a freedom, if you demand a freedom and it's worth enough to you, you take it. You don't ask. And that's one of the things that we do here in Texas that's so important.
Well, could you imagine what sort of motherfucker you have to be the guy that thought up the law and then got it passed to make it illegal to feed the homeless people? Like, homeless people are human beings that are having a rough time. Some of them choose to be outdoors. Some of them do not. Some of them are in circumstances. But regardless, they all need to eat. And to pass a law, people say, oh, government's not that bad. There's aspects of government where you sit around and go, you know what I'm going to propose for legislation is a law banning the feeding of homeless people. And then I'm going to go home and feel good about myself after doing that. What a piece of shit that person has to be.
No, they class it in, we have to protect the homeless from unsafe food.
That's the biggest problem facing the homeless is unsafe food. How about
you can feed the homeless? You just have to get a license and submit to a food safety inspection. You can do it. You just have to do it our way. I
hate government. It's so they treat us like children. They are high on their own adrenochrome. They are out of their minds. And in this is just I would never think, I don't know. I guess it has to do with the psychology of groups or the psychology of people in positions of power or something like this. It's fascinating to me that people would, it's horrible, of course, but the mindset of someone like that. I think that politics and government in general, it's like a magnet for authoritarian personality types that get off on telling people what to do and want to boss other people around and things like that. I've never really understood that. And people have said, "Oh, well, you've written these books, or you do. Why don't you run for politics, or why don't you run for some political office and do something about it?" And I just think, God, that's the last thing in the world I would want to do is to inject myself into this system. Wouldn't it be smarter for us to just build a better parallel, like another system, and then make that so appealing that it just sucks all the energy away from the existing system?
These are amazing questions. You're on exactly the right track. The best way to criticize, the best way to criticize is by creating. Rather than criticize, rather than, get involved like the Libertarian Party wants you to do. If you don't like how the system, get involved and help us change the system. No, you change it by creating and by doing and by taking. If you want to be more free, make yourself more free by making yourself more free. Other people will see you doing it. They will realize it can be done, and they will join you and march beside you or stand beside you. So yes, I absolutely agree with you there. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that's what it was. Going back to the realization that we had with just the amount of sheep that there are around us, unthinking zombies that there are around us, and how I was pretty red-pilled before COVID happened, but I was just blown away when suddenly overnight everyone is just these little marching ants, mask-wearing, faceless, order-following, virtue-signaling micro-tyrants. Like it was terrifying for a while until I kind of came to grips with just how many of those people were around us. And there's something about it. And this is the through line from the helping the homeless by preventing us from feeding them for safety to people's ability to so easily become micro tyrants with COVID and masks and safety is the sense of self, of just righteousness. They are righteous. They are protecting the homeless. They are righteous. They're protecting grandma. They are righteous. They're helping prevent the spread of COVID. And it seems like that might be a super exploitable facet of the human species. If you can make people think that they're being righteous and good and helpful, they will visit upon themselves and their neighbors the worst tyrannies you can imagine because they think they're the good guys. I think that's just what's in my head right now or lately.
And this bizarre sense of seeing their fear as some sort of virtue is such a strange component that if you're not at an adequate level of fear matching theirs, then they see you as a threat or something that maybe you're not. They've got to get you up to speed and pump up your fear levels, or else then they're fearful of you for not being afraid of the whole thing. And it's like, hey man, don't drag me into this collective delusion. I didn't sign some social contract with you. I don't have to get vaccinated so that I protect you. You want me to get vaccinated because I protect you? The fuck out of here with that. I'm not doing that. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it seems like if there's one good thing that's come out of this, it's been that the sheeple people have exposed themselves. I mean, and I think they probably see it the opposite way. They say, well, these conspiracy theorist people have exposed themselves, these anti-science, anti-mask wearing, anti-vaxxers. But I see it quite the other way around. And I took a similar sort of view of it as you did, which was, whoa, I didn't realize how many sheeple people were out there. And it's dangerous for us, because if there's one thing I've learned, and I love America or Americans, I love the idea of America, not the government, of course, but the people. But there's a saying that Americans in large numbers are very dangerous. Unthinking Americans in large numbers, in particular. And we have seen. I kind of joked that if Fauci had come out in, say, June or so, and had said that new information had been presented to him that said that due to the weight of the virus, of how light it is floating on air, that it tends to hover at about 4 to 5 feet right at mouth level. So from now on, we're going to need you to get on your hands and knees and crawl into the grocery stores. That tomorrow morning there would be a line of people on their hands and knees waiting to be told that it's their turn to crawl into the grocery store. And I've never been more disappointed with humanity than seeing these things. And I just think, get a hold of yourself, man. Like, what is going on? America, home of the brave, land of the free. I mean, it's like marketing slogans. I feel like that none of this stuff is real.
Yeah. The government, and I gave you the setup, but not the payoff earlier when I was talking about my past opinions on vaccines. Mm-hmm. That was the setup. I was explaining how I was coming into the topic, right. Pre-COVID. But then when they tell us that they've rushed through, first of all, government is already just grossly incompetent at literally everything they do. They are not good at anything. So to think that not only could we take that already abysmal standard of trustworthiness and efficiency and then accelerate it through, this new COVID vaccine that has been rushed through, I'm not letting that thing within 1 million miles of this particular body. That would be so dumb to just let the pharmaceutical people, to let the government experiment on me with something that an already untrustworthy source has lowered their standards to allow through. It's like, I already have trouble trusting them when their standards are normal, but now they have lowered them. Yes. Stay away from me. I'll talk to me in 10 years and we'll see how that vaccine worked out. And then I'll make a decision. I'm going to hold off on that one, I think. Yeah. But yeah, what does that mean? So what does that mean for us in our lives? What does it mean if we take a stand on that and say, no, I own myself. I'm not doing that. What tyranny is going to be visited upon our lives? How much of a price are we about to have to pay? That's the question. How far down the China social credit rabbit hole are we going? Because we are going there. Make no mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do we do about it? How do we prepare? These are the questions I'm worried about.
It's and great questions too. I mean, the social credit system is rolling out in front of us. It used to be that we would look at China and we'd go, ugh, authoritarian, no, thank you. But now it seems like our government looks at them and goes, oh, I like what, they're taking notes. Oh, I like what you've done here with this. No, nobody can talk back to you, or you send them to a camp. Let's add that to our list. Oh, you've got facial recognition cameras that find some guy if they see him smoking on a bus when he's not supposed to. Oh, let's roll that into it. Oh, we can take their social media posts and enter that into the equation. Great. I feel like America, for all of the good things that it has going for it, we've become welcoming of authoritarian control. And it's so antithetical of what America is supposed to be about. And yet here we are, not only are we accepting it, it reminds me of that, one of the bad Star Wars movies, one of the newer ones where they're in the Senate and they're voting to move towards the Galactic Empire, and they said, well, that's how democracy dies, to thunderous applause, and I feel like these days democracy, or whatever we want to call this, is dying to thunderous applause from all the sheep as they just stand there and virtue signal. I got my Fauci ouchie there and I'm saving the world and all. I just want to go blah. It's so
cute.
It's repulsive.
So cute. Just get your Fauci ouchie. Take a selfie in front of the picture wall that we have. Be a good person. Protect grandma.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've never, at the same time, and it's correlated, right? Inversely correlated. I'm discovering how many zombies there are around me, but I'm also feeling more isolated than ever before. And it's so good that we're starting to build these communities of voluntarists all over the world right now, because man, they're a lifeline. They're so important right now.
Well, how can people get in a hold of you? I know that you've got your website, desenthrall.me. Is that the best place to reach out to you to find out what you're doing? Because I got the feeling that a lot of people are going to want to be watching what you're doing and maybe follow along.
Yeah, desenthrall.me/platforms will give you a long list of both the Anarchast channels as well as the Disenthrall channels and wherever we upload. Yeah, that it's all there for you. All my socials there. I've really been like I'm turning over a new leaf. I just don't give a shit about social media anymore. I think it is just wholly, completely bad for the human species. I don't think much good has come of it. Not only that, but social media, like these social media I don't know. If you're trying to wrap up, let me know, because I got rants for days here.
No, I mean, go ahead. Go on the rant on the social media.
There's a book by Vin Armani. Do you know Vin Armani?
I know who he is, but I don't know him. I know that he's putting a new book called The Dim Age.
Yeah, Render Unto Caesar.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah,
new book, and I just read it, and he talks about culture as a set of memes, a set of traditions, and basically the culture is what most people are paying attention to. Like if you're walking down the street and you see a group of people and they're all looking up at a single point in the sky, chances are you're going to look up to see what they're looking at, because as a species, we have it built into us that it's important to pay attention to what the people around us are paying attention to.
Right.
Like that's how we locate danger incoming. That's how we know what's happening around us. Social media has wedged itself into that socket of our species, and they've realized that they can control what everyone's looking at, which makes us look at the same thing that everyone else is looking at, which just basically means that when you're on social media, you are looking at what they want you to look at, and they are determining culture for the first time in the history of the species. A monolithic entity can control what everyone looks at and what everyone thinks is going on and is important, because it's what shows up in your feed. Yeah. And when you get rid of that, it's sort of like you sort of take back your reality and you realize what's important and what isn't so much clearer. I would definitely recommend getting off social media.
Yeah, my mom was on Facebook and she posted something innocuous, but she got fact checked on it, and she was so offended that she got fact checked on it that she canceled her Facebook account. She goes, "I don't want to be on there if they're." She's like, "What I said was 100% right, and they told me it was wrong." And I said, "Welcome to my world, Mom. That's exactly. I mean, this is what we deal with all the time. So it's a frustrating time." Hey, if anybody wants to get a hold of Patrick Smith, go to desenthrall.me. Check him out and support his amazing work. And we are going to have links in the description to the audiobook for the Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. You can check that out. Patrick, you're the best, man. Thank you so much for spending some time.
I wanted to say one thing about the audiobook. We didn't really talk about it. Do we have a second?
We do.
Oh, okay, so good. So I've done many audiobooks at this point. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to tell the story of our interaction that we had a couple months ago. Is that okay with you?
Yes,
this is really important to me. And this is powerful, and this is rare, and this is amazing. Usually when I do audiobooks for other people, look, this is their baby. They wrote a book. Do you know how hard it is to write a book? I have yet to in my life even come close to starting writing a book. It's such a monumental task. And so when you put in months and years of effort into making sure that the book says exactly what you want it to say and what you mean, that is a very powerful thing to you. And to hand that, first of all, to somebody else to do an audio performance for, to me is a huge step. And that's something that I take very seriously as a performer. But also, I am not just an audiobook performer. I also have my own platforms. I have my own channels. I practice philosophy. I teach parenting. I'm out there too. And so in a way, I'm putting my name on something. Yeah. And that's scary for me because I don't ever want my voice to be saying things that I think will hurt people. I don't want that on my conscience. So that's a conflict when it comes to performing audiobooks, when other people might be saying these things.
Right.
And and usually when I'm doing books for other people, if they say something I disagree with, I will walk away. I will not take the job. I will not take the book if it goes against something that's important to me, because I am principle first. That's how I exist in this world.
Yep.
There was a point in your book, and I felt so hubristic to even approach you, because again, this is your baby. There was a point in the book that disagreed with something that I had evidence for in my life, and we don't need to go into the specifics, but it was a medical point of fact that I knew, at least in my heart, was wrong, and I didn't want the world knowing. And I had evidence for that.
Right.
And I was terrified, because how hubristic of me would it be to approach the author who's trusted me with their baby, their book, and be like, I don't like this part. We need to get rid of it or I quit. Like, right. I would never, that's not me. I don't want to do that. It's terrifying. That's terrible. But I approached you and I said, hey, I have experience and evidence that this one sentence is not right and might even endanger somebody. And you know what I figured? I'd be like, I figured you would just be, okay, that's fine. You don't have to continue doing the book, Patrick. I understand. We'll find somebody else. I was ready for that. I was sad. I was stressed. But that's not what you did. Like, I presented my evidence to you, and you literally just almost nonchalantly said, oh, well, cut that part out because the truth is more important to me than my book being, as I wrote it. You totally took me off guard with that. And I think you deserve so much respect for that. No one would have done that from my perspective. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to let you know that because of that, I am proud to have done the audio performance for your book. It's amazing. Thank you.
Well, I have a philosophy for the books or the podcasts or my life in general. I reserve the right to change my mind if I am presented with new evidence that contradicts what I had previously believed. I mean, we all change our minds on things. We all see things different. And you approached me and said, I have this life experience that says that this component that you wrote about is wrong. Here's the reason why. And I said, I mean, we're not going to get into it, but given the circumstances, I'm so glad I was wrong. You know what I mean? Because for me to be wrong meant that that you saw this medical situation unfold in a way that was beneficial to you, and that I will trade that in any day. I would rather be wrong and have to say I'm wrong about something than to continue, to be, sort of like, I'm just going to fit a square peg in a round hole and we're just going to, no, man, I respect you too much to put you in a situation where you feel that you've compromised your beliefs on something. I would never want someone to do that to me, and I would never do that to someone else. And so for as much as you said that you thought it was great that I did that, just know that I thought it was great that you felt comfortable bringing that up. We could talk about it, figure it out, and sort it out. So it is the feeling is mutual, man.
Awesome. I learned a lot from the book, and I'm not just saying that trying to promote the book that I did the audio performance for. I literally learned a lot. Like I said, I'm not a big conspiracy theory person historically, but wow. There is a lot of information in that book that most people have no idea about. And it's like bullet pointed. It's like, it's not a little bit of evidence. It's this and this and this and this and this and this and this. It's really good. I told
Berwick, man, I said, if we write this thing, I mean, given his high profile and the amount of people that want to take shots at him, I said, we've got to have 1 million footnotes. We got to document. We can't be, we got to have, it's like Bill Hicks says, I can't say this shit if I don't have if it's not the truth. I can't be this big of an asshole if I don't have the truth on my side. So I felt like with Jeff, like, all right, let's make sure that we button this up and not give anybody too many places to go. That being said, in the future, if there are aspects of the book that turn out to be absolutely wrong, I will take the same stance I did and own it and say, well, we were wrong on that. The interest is in getting it right, not being right. You know what I mean? And there's a huge difference there. So we couldn't have picked a better guy to do it than you. So thank you so much for doing it again. I really appreciate it. The book, the audio book is gonna make some people, if they're listening to it in their car, make them want to drive off a cliff on some levels. But hopefully your sweet, soothing voice keeps them coming back for more, man.
Hopefully I didn't get too preachy, because there was a couple places, like I was like on my pulpit, man, whew, it was good. It's good.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And for everyone that the links are in the description. Patrick, you're the best. Thank you so much. We'll wrap up here. And everybody, if you like this episode, you've got to share it. the algorithms hate us. They see my name, they see Patrick's name, they go, these dirty anarchists, they've got to be dealt with. We're not going to share it. So share the information, get it out there. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you soon.